From my home to yours, welcome to EMS at Sea Level. Today's guest is Rainer Koppitz from KATEK Group. Before we get into the questions, Rainer, can you give me a 1 or 2 minute introduction to yourself and to KATEK?
Yeah, sure. So Phil, first of all, thank you very much for this this invitation. And as always, those days it's remote, but I mean that's perfectly fine. I think we all in the meanwhile trained, in doing this. My name is Rainer Koppitz. I'm the CEO of Munich-based KATEK Group. And I'm, 52 years old. Right now I'm working from my home office in a very old rural cottage in the Bavarian side of southeastern Bavaria. It's very close to Salzburg. We have a few sheep here, some apple trees, so very relaxed way of doing home office. And, I'm really happy to be here. Representing KATEK Group, and KATEK Group, is aiming to become one of the European leaders in the electronics manufacturing services industry. Right now, we managed to become number 2 in Germany in 2019, among the top 10 list in Europe, and of course, for all of us, this epidemic is quite a, I would say, quite a headwind. But we will talk about this a little bit later. So thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, no, absolute pleasure. And just to delve a little bit on KATEK, you've grown some of that by acquisition. There's a number of companies that you've brought together. Just kind of run me through the acquisitions of the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, so basically the journey of the KATEK Group started 2017 when a family office called Prime Pulse did an acquisition of the Stoten Group in Memmingen with a factory in Bulgaria. They are very active, for example, in the solar energy business. And then they saw that it's a very interesting industry, this electronics industry, and by chance they managed to also acquire the electronics affiliate of the very well-known KATEK Group. And this was named KATEK, by the way, this affiliate. This happened in summer 2018. And then they saw, hey, look, now we are already, 2 companies with 4 locations. Maybe let's do a strategy out of this. What about, following down this path further and building a very strong electronics company? And then they hired me in order to, guide and lead this journey. And we next move was that at the beginning of 2019, we acquired ETL, Elektrotechnik Lauter, a specialized player also in southern Germany for embedded systems. Then over the course of the year 2019, we also acquired the Bebro Group. The Bebro Group consisted of 3 companies: classic EMS business with factories close to Stuttgart and in the Czech Republic, with a very specialized daughter company called B-Flex, very focused on the interesting prototyping, rapid prototyping business, and thirdly, a company being specialized on, electro mobility and e-cars electronics. They, for example, do the ICCPD for the new Porsche Taycan, which is a very interesting business, and that's not even ODM, it's OEM business. The customer is Porsche. And then completely different, we acquired mid of March, so right at the beginning of Corona crisis, the electronics daughter of Hoof. Hoof is a automotive supplier doing all the electronic door systems for Mercedes and all the others. And we acquired the electronics daughter. It's kind of a, I would say, outsourcing project with all the employees, all the machines. That was the latest move, and all of this,
Right.
let's say, catapulted us into the top 10 of Europe. And we will follow this path further, of course.
Yeah, no, it's been a fascinating journey, and it's a fast-moving journey. And to actually do an acquisition in March of this year is fascinating. Let's just run through where we've been in kind of February, March, April, and where we are now, with respect to your experiences and the challenges you've seen with the coronavirus.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, I must say, short term, for us now, April was the worst month of our history. We had something like a 25% revenue drop from March. So this was really, really bad. I mean, we managed to still produce a slightly positive EBITDA, but I mean, this was a very hard month. So the next 3 to 6 months, I think beginning with May already, there will be a slow recovery of the volumes. But I mean, especially in automotive and also in capital goods like mechanical engineering, they will not reach the pre-corona niveau again this year on a monthly basis. So this will stay very hard. But also, honestly speaking, we did something like we call it the Corona case, so a revised case for the year 2020. And we still think that in the full year 2020, KATEK will show organic growth slightly above 10%. Wow. But I mean, this sounds good, but originally we've planned more than 25% organic growth. So it's a big difference still.
Yeah. And what about on the supply side? What have you seen in terms of supply chain challenges as well as the demand challenges?
Yeah. So so far, I must say, and I'm knocking on wood, we are doing quite well in this so far. So right now, I wouldn't say that we have dramatic revenue drops because of the supply chain. But honestly speaking, this now is starting. This is not now starting on a, let me say, broad basis, but it's starting in some, special cases where, for example, we have a single source in somewhere in Asia, and due to logistics and the shutdown of a factory, we don't have an alternative. This is, for example, in the month of May, is heavily hitting some of our solar and energy business, where we could do much more in terms of revenue. On the other side, we are on the lucky side because we are pretty much involved in the fight against COVID-19, especially in the medical and in the healthcare equipment. So this also helps us in getting the right material, because we are seen in the market
as an essential,
one of the players, who's really producing mission critical stuff to manage the crisis. And I mean, 4 out of 8 of our European main production sites, they produce something like the very important ventilators or blood analyzers, or not the machines as such, the equipment, but the electronics in it. Exactly. So we decided to in the light of material allocations and limited production capacity, to give those kind of equipment 100% priority. And we in some areas we tripled the capacity for some of those products. And I mean, don't underestimate the motivational aspect, on our employees to produce those mission critical products. And they are extremely proud of their contribution to manage the crisis and save lives.
Yeah, and absolutely they should be. And that's kind of a testament to the team you've got, but it's also the testament to the flexibility you've got in your manufacturing, the processes, because you've got to
Absolutely.
pivot from product to product, but you've also got to ramp volumes very, very quickly. What do you put that down to? Is it down to, is it down to a factory control system, or is it down to the way you manage with software or the equipment sets you have? What makes it easier to ramp volumes and to pivot quickly?
I mean, honestly speaking, it's the team. I think, of course, we have some very good, we have some software tools, we have some smart processes, etc. But I mean, honestly speaking, the difference is the team. I mean, just to give you an example, our sourcing team, I think, is doing an extremely good job.
Yeah.
I mean, they have daily escalation calls. I mean, with all the relevant suppliers globally, they are really giving a lot of pressure on them. Making sure that we are on the top of their list. I mean, they have on their table within minutes if there is some kind of supply problem in one of our factories, and they take care of it. And I mean, I think in this crisis, in order to handle this, one of our biggest advantages is the structures which we've built, which is I mean, more like, I would say, political system where it's not everything is centralized with one big capital and all the administrative people there thinking about what might happen in some of the farthest provinces.
States or whatever.
They are wrong very often. It's more that we have a clear, let me say, strategy on how to go through this crisis with all the health aspects, with all the supply aspects, with the priorities, home office strategy, etc. But then we have our local managing directors who manage what we call speedboats, and I mean, they translate it to the actual situation. And they take something away from the central strategy which doesn't make sense, and they put something additional, some local flavor, and so we can, let me say, steer as this speedboat flotille through the ocean in much faster and more flexible way than maybe some of the giants with their central departments and overheads. I mean, our overhead globally, our overhead is 6 people, and all the main decisions daily are being made locally.
Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting. And, when we look at what's going on here, I think team is huge, and I think leadership is huge. And the idea that you've got very centralized, focused leadership, but you've deployed power to the states, if you like, or you've deployed that strategic or that tactical management to the teams, and you've got the right people to do that is really, really valuable right now. And I think what people are learning very quickly at the moment is what works and what doesn't. And it feels like you've put that policy in not knowing that the pandemic was coming, and it's actually reacted really well to it. So that must be very, very, very satisfying.
Exactly. And of course, I mean, we also take advantage of all the possibilities which we have here in Europe, or especially in Germany, in terms of short-time work. So I mean, in combination with this, let me say, shock that the volumes went down by 25% from March to April, we reduced our personal cost by 17%. And all of this was possible without too many social frictions among the employees, which is very clearly strength, so that we don't lose all the good people. And if now there is a recovery of the economy, we still have the people on board and can start.
Yeah. So Rainer, let me ask you a couple of things about kind of mega trends and what's going on in the industry. 2 things that seem to be impacting manufacturing, and we're ignoring the fact that obviously this has put a lot of undue pressure on people in terms of cash flow. But one thing that we're hearing more and more about is regionalization and this slightly anti-globalization sentiment. So
Yeah.
the idea of securing supply chains closer to consumption, particularly when they're critical supply chains. How do you see that impacting your business going forward?
Yeah, this will have some, I mean, advantages and some challenges for us, obviously. I mean, the challenge, honestly speaking, is that you know, we have a lot of globally active customers in all kind of industries, and the pressure to serve them in their local factories, for example, in Latin America or in Northern Africa or wherever, and to serve this with local factories on our side, you know, this pressure will increase in the future. So I would say the signals are clear. They also want you know, to work together with KATEK as a reliable supplier in those areas, but we will be challenged in order to set up you know, some own factories there, or buy something like this. So this will be a clear trend, and this will be a challenge for us, of course, to find the right footprint there. Secondly, there's of course also a big opportunity, because what we are seeing right now is that many European companies who, let me say, gave you know, a lot of their electronics manufacturing services to, for example, Asian players, have now, with the pressure of their board, a new strategy saying at least 1/3. It's just an example which I had on my table yesterday, which is a French, very big French company, and the new strategy is at least 1/3 of this should be sourced in Europe.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I mean, the sourcing department of this company, they have the challenge to find now a reliable partner who can promise them, you know, that they deliver it, you know, with high quality and at the same level of cost. So that's a big chance for, you know, a larger player than KATEK to say, we are exactly the right one here. We have not only plants in Western Europe, but also in Eastern Europe. Let's find the right location, and, you know, challenge accepted. We want to do this. And there will be a lot more of this in the future, because all the European players, they need to revise their sourcing strategy, and at least you know, resource you know, some of this in the future from European players. So that's a big you know, chance to all of us. And then there's the third aspect, and the third aspect is that also we have to learn, like in the example I told you before, in the solar energy business, we have also to rethink our sourcing strategy, and need to build on, let me say, at least dual or triple sourcing, and not you know, single sourcing from you know, one country in Asia with one supplier. This won't work in future. So those are the three aspects I would say.
Yeah, and there's some big challenges there, and I think it's all about making supply chains more resilient and more agile. And it's ironic, Rainer, when we think about it, because those people that are in the boardroom saying strategically you have to have sourcing closer are probably the same people that 5 or 6 years ago were saying strategically we should be buying more from Asia because it will save us money. So it's interesting, and it's true in the media as well. We see that move on. But when I look at that trend, I think, okay, people are going to want their products made locally, and there's going to be supply chain necessity to do that. But nobody wants to pay more for anything. Nobody wants to have an additional cost for made in Germany or made in the US. Nobody wants to have an additional cost for a more sustainable supply chain. So the only way we can overcome that is to become more efficient, maybe reduce our dependence on manual labor, because that's where low-cost labor environments win. Does that push us towards a more digitally transformed world? Does that push us further on the journey towards Industry 4.0, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I definitely think so. That's one aspect. I don't think it's happening within the next, let me say, 12 to 24 months. because I mean, this Corona crisis is a big hit for all of us, and I think, you know, on the short term there will be a, let me say, focus on investments which are unavoidable.
Yeah.
So digitalization and all the aspects of it will, at least for the next quarters, and maybe it's up to 2 years, will have some headwinds because the same board, you know, will not allow huge investments into future technology and automation and fancy software, and I mean all of those kind of things. There will just be no money to do this, honestly speaking. But you are absolutely right. On the long run, the trends we just discussed, with reallocation, this will largely push also the EMS companies to invest into much more automated systems and systems which are much closer, you know, connected through the value chain. And we see some of those trends. And the other aspect is I think that also this crisis and the trends will push a lot more that, you know, some of how customer interactions and also the ordering processes will be much more digitalized. So we will see also new players who, you know, think about electronics manufacturing in a completely different way, from a platform stand of view, etc. And this is also something you know, KATEK will invest into in the future. So not only the classic EMS part, but also, you
disruptive.
know, exactly, disruptive. How could EMS look like in 10 or 15 years and be part of this or even dominate it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are some exciting trends there in terms of business models. And when you talk about those challenges to CapEx, I absolutely agree that that's going to be the case. And then I look at some of the offerings that I've seen recently where you've got very measurable ROI on a short-term digital transformation project, but there might be a simple digital building block that you can say, actually, I'm going to get a payback in 3 months on this. And I can actually, maybe I can lease it, maybe I can shift it to OpEx rather than CapEx. Then the guys that are driving your speedboats have got the ability to say, you know, hey, we're going to do this here because that suits us. It's not a CapEx expenditure. So I think there will still be some of those things, but I think those big kind of $10 million digital transformation projects are gonna get pushed out, to say the least.
Exactly.
But some interesting times. So just exploring kind of, you know, some of the lighter stuff. You've got a team of you know, sales guys that are used to going to see people and take them out for a beer and press the flesh, and they're not able to do that. You've got a whole bunch of staff that would normally be in at the various different facilities that are now working from home. How are you keeping them all sane? How are you keeping the spirits and the morale up?
I mean that's difficult on one side. On the other side, I think it worked much better than we originally you know, expected. Both from the you know, technical side, where, you know, the IT departments did a tremendous job in our old-fashioned industry to make it happen that you know, almost all of the people which are not working you know, in the factory itself were able to work from home office all of a sudden. So this was really brilliantly done. On the other side, of course, I mean, what are, for example, the salespeople? What are they doing all day there? So you really needed to think about, you know, what kind of, let me say, more strategic project can fill the gap. I mean, to keep the spirits up, to keep the people busy, to you know, focus on the future rather than always on the latest Corona news. And I mean, that's basically what we did. I mean, we started a completely, just, you know, to example, completely new series of what we call, you know, must-win deal calls. So really, I mean, to focus on the must-win deals for the next 2 to 3 quarters, you know, discussing them, preparing them, etc. First, we, with regards to sales, we made a big push in terms of the CRM, the Salesforce.com implementation, and to fill this with data, actualize this, and start using it in all the discussions. And then thirdly, we started some more strategic sales initiatives, like, for example, we have kind of an outsourcing initiative. We are deep believers that also one of the side effects of what's happening right now, because our customers, they have the same problems with capital expenditure, focus on key strength, turning fixed costs into variable costs, etc. So we think that there will be a great time for companies like our companies who can be the right outsourcing partner for all those production companies which still manufacturing, where it's not their core area of competency and not their focus area. So we started with a broad analysis and some kind of artificial intelligence software kind of research and a project in order to take advantage of this and drive a big initiative to get the right outsourcing deals into our pipeline. So those are examples. I think keep the spirits high means you have to tell the people, and we have something like a bi-weekly video from my side, informing everybody of where we stand in terms of economically, the crisis, how do we prepare on the health problems, etc., those kind of things, but also saying, look, we will have a bright future, and that's what we're going to do.
We're going to focus on that. Yeah,
exactly. So, and one of the big things in keeping the spirits high is people must be busy. They cannot sit, they cannot sit at home in the garden with the dog and worrying about the future. They need to be active and busy.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And, I think what you've hit on the head there is that combination of leadership and communication is huge. You need to do that. But what I think is really interesting is I talk to people that are working from home, and, you live in a cottage there, and there's all those jobs to do around the cottage that you maybe haven't done because you've been out of the office, and now you can do, like putting some shelves up or whatever. You get to do that in the business as well. So the sales team get to clean house a little bit and do a bit of housekeeping on their CRM, and the different people get to look at different systems.
Exactly.
What about you personally? You've been stuck at home, you're used to flying around, you're used to traveling constantly. What have you been watching on Netflix or on Stan? You've got or Apple TV, you've got no sport to watch. So what's been keeping you entertained?
Yeah, I mean, first, a big surprise to me was that I thought there must be, much time for me now because all this travel times, being in the car and plane, etc. That's the way, but this was not the case. Well, really, from 7:30 until the evening, you have video calls. So there, it's really a big surprise because there's no time freed up. On the other side, as you cannot go into restaurants in the evening or whatever, you're right. I mean, Netflix and Amazon Prime, they play a big role in life in the meanwhile. And one of the series I'm watching, for example, is The Last Ship. Okay. I mean, it's great. The Last Ship. It's a great US series about a pandemic and how this can change the entire world. I mean, it's an old series. It's an old series, and it's a little bit old school US. But I think we are all dreaming of times where the US played a role as the good night. Rather before the White House turned into a madhouse, and
absolutely,
that's a lot of fun. So it has some kind of connection to the reality with this pandemic. On the other side, it's dreaming of a better world where at least the US played a better role.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really nice thought, and it is interesting to see the way different national behaviors come out during this process, but we'll leave politics aside. Before we go, Rainer, any advice you'd offer your peers, other other EMS execs that are going through the same thing as you, particularly those in Europe?
Yeah. So good question. I think I cannot speak for others, but I mean, what I'm seeing is that crisis is showing you very precisely, like I would say under a microscope, what, for example, processes or IT, and also who in your organization is working and performing right
Yeah,
now when it really does matter. So, you know, I think it makes sense to take the crisis as an opportunity and change right now whatever or also whoever turned out to, let me
yeah,
say, under deliver and not,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
contribute as, you know, it
as
or he or
expected.
she should do. So my personal advice would be, you know, learn from it, do it right now, and don't wait for the new crisis. I think now's the time to act. I would say start future, how
Yeah.
our chairman of the board is rightly saying. There are some learnings, and it doesn't make sense to just take some notes on it. You know, we can act now.
Yeah, and I love that whole team analogy, because you're seeing which members of your team, you know, step up in a crisis. It's like, you know, it's like extra time in a soccer game in the
Yeah.
Champions League, and you've got that last chance, and some players will drop their head, and some players will just raise their game and perform, and it's great to see those that do. Rainer, thank you so much for your time and your candor. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you. Until next time on EMS at Sea Level, thank you everybody for watching.